Good morning. So those of you who've been following my English paper piecing project, it's been a little while since I've posted. I have to confess, I actually kind of got going on bloomers and put this in the back burner because I've been pondering, what am I going to do? How am I going to finish it? At one point, I thought I was going to make it into a floor rug, which appalled people, but I just thought it would be really cool for a floor rug. There's a product called Eau de Coat that I could put on the top and make it nice, so I kind of thought, okay, I'll make a floor rug out of it. And then I was like, nah, maybe not so much. Maybe I'll make a table topper out of it. And then I decided I didn't want that. And then somebody said to me, you know what would be really good is to make it so that you could use it more than one way. So you could use it as a table topper, or you could hang it on a wall, or you could use it as a quilt. And so in order to do that, I kind of am going to have to mount it on something and then put the batting and the back on it. So I brought it in today for our long arm quilter Cindy to look at it and advise me on what to do. And I would suggest, if you're not going to do the finished quilting, work with a professional. Find somebody who does long arm quilting finishing and have them help you figure out what to do, because this is not for the lighthearted. This is not, I mean, you could just hand stitch it if you want, and there would even be technique things you would need to know on that. But I've elected to have this finished by a professional long arm quilter because I really don't like to do that part, and I want it to look amazing. If you think about making a birthday cake, and if you didn't put any icing on it and you didn't put any decorations on it, that's what you get if you just kind of quilt something and leave it plain. But if you get a long arm quilter or you do finished hand quilting, that is amazing. It's the icing on your cake that just makes it go pop. So let me walk you through a little bit of what we figured out. First of all, I had to figure out what was I going to use to back it. So this is basically going to just kind of be appliqued on a great big square of fabric. Because of the color layout in this, I chose the same piece that's here for the background. And what that's making this do now is it looks like this is kind of a medallion laying on this print, and now this is a medallion laying on this print. So it's given this some dimension that I wasn't prepared to see until I laid it down, and now I love it. I think it's just a really cool thing to do. The other thing I would suggest when you're looking at your backgrounds is think about how it matches with what the edge is. So this particular pattern is nowhere in my edge, nowhere. So that this doesn't lay against that and make these edges melt. So I don't lose the fact that I've made these beautiful points and that they're part of the dimension of the finishing. You could certainly put it on a solid color. I could have just picked like this aqua and just put it on aqua. Black is always right. I just can tell you right now, when you are looking to do bindings or a little border or a big border or anything, black on especially bright colors just pops. It's fabulous. So I wouldn't have hesitated to even use black on this just for the background, or full cream. Now if I'd used this cream print, what would have happened then was the stars would have been the finishing edge, and this would have melted into this print. So, there's lots of ways you can audition what you want to use to mount this on if you decide to mount it on something. And basically it's a big applique at this point. It's just one big applique piece. This is a whole piece of fabric. It's solid. I sewed two pieces together like that, and so I already have a layer of fabric behind this. This entire piece of fabric goes behind this entire piece. I could go in and trim it out if I wanted to, if I was worried about the thickness of the quilt. I'm not worried about that. I like thick, heavy quilts, but I can see someone wanting to cut that out before it's quilted. But here's why I'm not going to. Because as I spoke with the long arm quilter here today, one of the things we figured out, and I'm going to push this, and Peter, you can get out and show. What I did, thinking I was being smart, I basted it basically all the way around here. But when she quilts it and this fabric pushes its way out, I'm potentially going to have a bulge here. Or conversely, it's going to bulge in the center. It gives too much opportunity for bulging and bunching. And I don't want that. I want this to lay as flat and smooth as possible. So together, along with Peter, we all had this little meeting here this morning, and we've concluded that what I'm going to do is take this basting out that's on the edges, which I basically just did a zigzag stitch with 80 weight thread to make it invisible, thinking, oh, well, then she can just quilt it. Well, we've decided that's not going to work. What we're going to do instead is I'm going to kind of baste around here, very large, loose basting stitches. I'm going to baste around here with large, loose basting stitches. And then I'm going to rip this out so that this part is free floating out here. And as she quilts moves her way out, and if you were hand quilting it, this is exactly the way to do it. As she moves her way out, she can ease that fullness onto this back so that when she gets to the end of the quilting, it doesn't do that, but rather it's going to lay nice and flat. And then once she's done all the quilting on it, then I'm going to come back and probably put a stitch all the way around just to stabilize it a little bit. So stay tuned, because honestly, this will be done within the next week. Then the other part was, I was going to just cut this backing piece, which is just a big square right now. I was just going to cut that in a big square, but I'm not. I decided that's not as much fun. So what I'm going to do is follow the shape of the quilt so that it'll be a big hexagon, octagon, I don't know, some kind of gon. But it's going to be just an 8-inch border that'll probably mirror this snowball. So you'll have, it won't be a square quilt, and it won't have a lot of tight angles, but it'll kind of have a curve to it. It won't really be round, because I'm going to lay my ruler. I'm going to lay my ruler on it like this. So I'm going to go like point to point, and I'm going to cut that at 6 inches, and then I'm going to go point to point, and there'll be a point off of this point. So each one of these points will have another point out here. Does that make sense? Am I saying that so that makes sense? I think when you see it done, you'll get it. But that'll be how it finishes. So it still is not going to be a square quilt. It's still going to have this round shape that I've just come to love. This kind of snowball, continually flowing movement. It's like a stone in the middle, and it's just caused this ripple effect that's made this really cool quilt that goes in circles. So I'm excited to see it quilted. I can't wait.
Do you have a backing fabric picked out?
I do. Okay, so this is all Tula fabric, if y'all are Tula fans. This is her Lineworks backing, and it has the most incredible hand to it. It's just the nicest, silkiest, fabulous, fabulous fabric. So this piece of fabric, I just can't cut it. I can't, it's so pretty. I just don't want to cut it up. So, you know, colors-wise, I could see people go, well, that doesn't really go with the front of the quilt. Well, it's the back of the quilt, so I don't care if it goes with the front of the quilt, because this way I'll really be able to use two sides, and I just didn't want to cut this piece of fabric up because it shows her creative genius and just the process she goes through in making a quilt and designing her quilts and her fabrics. And so this is the back, and I'm kind of excited to have something that will use this in one big piece so that I can see it in one big piece. And I may display the back side of the quilt as much as I do the front, you know, because it's going to be cool. So.
And something you used to say about the backing fabric of a quilt always stuck with me.
Oh, what was that?
The back of the quilt, it's the continuation from the party from the front of the quilt.
It is. Yeah, it's a party in the back. I mean, it's the back room party. So when you come in our store, we've got all our front room staff, which you guys all see them all the time. But we literally have about 10 people in the back of our store, and they run the store as much and do as many important things as the people you see out front. So it's just like your quilt. The front and the back are equally as important, and you don't want to let one not be as cool as the other. So this is what's going to be on the back of her. And Cindy's going to quilt it in the next few days. So probably next week, I hate to promise a video, but I think next week sometime we should be able to show you the finished quilt and all the cool stuff she's going to do to embellish and put the icing on this cake and make it fabulous. So thanks for watching. Happy stitching.